Let's now turn to the first criterion of adequacy for moral theories. Criterion number one: consistency with our considered moral judgments. Now, when we take considered moral judgments, what is the difference between a considered moral judgment and a rash moral judgment, a spontaneous moral judgment, a hastily thought out moral judgment? And I think we can think about it in this way. That is, when we're thinking about considered moral judgment, we're saying we've given careful consideration. It's not just that we feel some way about it. It's that we've thought about it. We've thought about the consequences. We've thought about how it applies in different places, different times. We've thought about it rationally. We're not very angry about something. We're impartial. We're emotionally detached from it. In addition to which, similarly, considered moral judgment is going to be free of bias. That is, you're not going to have a considered moral judgment when it's something that you know you have a bias against. Or if you have a personal interest, it has to be free of personal interest. That is, you're not making a decision because it's best for you, but rather it is the right thing to do. And there are other kinds of distorting influences, but it has to be as free as possible from all of these kinds of influences. And in general, it looks like we're entitled to at least put some faith. You might say prima facie. We've learned absolute versus prima facie. We're entitled to entrust them unless we have been given a good reason to doubt them. That is, they're not infallible, our considered judgments, but rather they're a data point that we can use in deciding adequacies. And sometimes we're going to have to decide that some of them are, there is reason to doubt that they're correct. And especially, and keep in mind that considered moral judgments are fallible. And we say that they're fallible, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're fouled up in some way, but they're fallible. That is, we think they're right. We've given them a lot of thought. They're reasonable, but it doesn't guarantee that we have the right ones. So this is kind of the best data that we can possibly have in this case. And what kind of moral judgments would be, considered, or even better, what things would be inconsistent with our considered moral judgment? Well, an example of something that would be inconsistent with our moral judgments, we have moral judgments about slavery, right? That slavery is wrong, murder is wrong, rape is wrong, genocide is wrong. So if we have a theory that implies that any of these is permissible, it is inconsistent with our moral judgments. So we think that that is something that will count against them. But something that's important to take note of when we're thinking of any of these criteria, and that is, and we heard in scientific cases we do the same thing. We have theories and then we have judgments about the theories. And especially in moral theory, sometimes we have to take a balance between the theory and some moral judgments. That is, we can find a theory that really looks pretty good, even though goes against certain of our moral judgments, and we might want to revise our moral judgments. They might actually give us reason for revising our moral judgments, or it can work the same way. That is, moral judgments that we really think are really good and the theory can't explain them those we think would be weaknesses in a moral theory.